My name is Chris Packham and I'm a naturalist, and I've lived in Hampshire all of my life. I grew up in Southampton and I live in the New Forest now, very lucky to live in the New Forest. And for me, it may surprise you, given my interest in the wider natural world, but for me, man landing on the moon was just about the biggest event in my life. I mean, let's face it, we won the World Cup, but I was really too young to remember that, and subsequently we've lost on penalties in both crucial stages to the Germans. So the biggest events that could have been in my life have come down to that of Neil and Collins and Aldrin. I remember my mother waking me up, taking me downstairs, sitting me in front of a black and white television with a terrible picture, aged 8, and saying, watch this because it's actually really, really important. And I saw Armstrong struggling down those steps, and the crackly old was going with the occasional bleep, bleep. Everything had to have a bleep when they were doing the old space commentary, and him put his foot on the moon, and I heard those immortal words. And I suppose it was much later that I realised the significance of the event. And when I think about that now, you know, I come out into this garden and I gaze up at that satellite and I look at it, and it seems so impossible. To even conceive of going there now would be, you know, almost beyond our imagination in terms of the available science. But to have done it in 1969 adds to the wonder of the achievement, to be quite honest with you. And I was fortunate enough once to go to the Air and Space Museum in Washington to look at the hardware that they used. And these were actual facsimiles of the craft, which they kept on Earth, so that if anything went wrong with those in space, they could check out what was happening with the replica on Earth. And now they've got those ones in the museum, and they look like dustbins that have been adapted by a bunch of Boy Scouts using bits of old 3-bar fires for the electrics. I mean, these are very primitive machines, and these guys got in there and went to the moon. I always wanted to be an astronaut. You know, I wasn't alone. I mean, there must have been, you know, legions of particularly young boys in the 60s and very early 70s that if you said to them, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up, we'd gone past train driver because the age of steam had fizzled out, and it was astronaut. I mean, I was never going to be an astronaut. 1, I wasn't American. 2, I wasn't very good at maths. 3, I was never going to be a test pilot, blah, blah, blah. So it was inane childhood fantasy. And I think the principal reason that I wanted to be an astronaut was to get up there and look back here. Because whenever you look at the planet, those amazing pictures taken from space looking back at Earth, it just looks perfect and it looks beautiful. And of course in close-up, you know, down here, it doesn't, because so many parts of it are horribly damaged by us. So the distance provides a filter. And whilst I can look around and see beautiful things in this garden, species, butterflies, grass, whatever, as individual species, when I look at the area as a whole, I can't conceive of that beauty. But from up there looking back at this beautiful little blue jewel floating in that blackness, wow, that'd be amazing.